So yes, for Kim's piece, we started talking about the design of it very early on, and the piece was still very much in creation. Kim and I were just discussing kind of visually what would be interesting for having pieces that were little segments involving different dancers and still have a cohesive feel. And one of the things we talked about was a kind of uniform or a monochromatic feel. And in the end, we ended up going with everyone being kind of in a monochromatic zone and with a palette that was very punchy so that they would stand out in the room. So that is where that derived from, along with something that had a bit of patchworking and a more kind of utilitarian feel to it. For Kaja's piece, the prompts when we started talking were basketball short with a purple ombre, and that's what we left off of. And from that, something really interested me about the piece and its kind of quirkiness that involved what could be the top. And so imagining that, I was thinking how to bring in texture and how to bring in something that had a feeling to it that would also move nicely with the dancers and live in a kind of street fashion world. So it ended up being crochet vests that were getting made and were dyeing, and we had the fabric printed, so that's very exciting. It came out really well. For Catherine's piece, is very inspired by water, and I think when there's pieces that are inspired by an element, especially water, it's how to find a way to make it have the emotional feel of water but not be like flowy like water, or find the qualities of water that aren't the pinnacle qualities, and how to take that out. So for one, we went with a palette that's a lot more murky and a lot more kind of like mystery ocean feel instead of going for solid blues, living kind of the sea foams and the greens. And this piece conceptually, I was thinking about submersion and how pieces, because of water's transparency, how pieces of your body can get blurred when you're in water. And because the piece is a lot of a journey and going through different stages, that's why we went with a mesh and the feeling of seeing pieces of the body more than others at times. For Sabrina's piece, a lot of it came out of this feeling of our relationship to spirituality and wanting to live in the decades of kind of around the 50s, 40s, 50s, while going with very neutral tones, creams, browns, and having that feel of a more vintage, but we often talked a lot, Sabrina and I, about the relationship of our ancestors to us and that how it links with spirituality and jazz. So for that, it just pretty straightforward in the 50s and then the palette. For Deanne's piece, Deanne came to me with the idea of these large belled pants that have structure and this visual of kind of floating on top of the ground when they walk, with the idea of how can they transform, how can the piece evolve throughout. With that, it was finding kind of what is the pant that we want to go with, how does it transform, and so the design came more out of a place of the idea of transformation than a strong start visual aesthetic. I think the beauty of this show is that you're getting snippets into different people's perspectives of creating work, and with that, they each come with their own individual language. Whether that is through the movement and through the visuals, they each have something uniquely to say that is in turn creating a unified vision in the end in the show.